Welcome to the Stone Table. This isn't a stage, it's a gathering place. Here, lifters of all kinds bring their stories. The heavy, the honest, and the hard-earned. Real voices, real weight. Shared like a good pour among friends. Recorded in Ontario, Canada, and open to lifters everywhere. Sláinte.
In this heartfelt episode, Katie Vaudrain opens up about her journey in stone lifting, an activity that has not only tested her physical strength, but also her commitment to inclusivity and love. She shares how the principles of unity and acceptance have shaped her experiences and how we can all replicate this spirit in our own lives and communities. Katie's message is clear. Love is the cornerstone of community, and through her stories, she inspires us to embrace diversity and strength in every form. Join us here at the Stone Table podcast as we delve into her world, where lifting stones becomes a metaphor for lifting each other up. Welcome back to the Stone Table podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Innes, and today joining me here in the studio is Katie. Katie and I have been in Highland Games and stone lifting for some time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's a great day to talk stones.
It is. And so as I ask every guest, what are you drinking today?
My drink of choice today is a apple cinnamon tea.
Awesome. I'm also drinking tea because it's -18 here. I don't know what it is there, but the garage is pretty cool. I also have a blanket.
I respect all of that. We just had our first like real snowfall yesterday, so it's feeling wintry.
As I said to you, I was super excited to bring you on for a number of reasons. One, kind of your pathway. It's somewhat similar to mine, although you have more experience in the throwing realm than I do. But the Highland Games to strength to stone lifting. But before we get into all of that, can you kind of tell us a bit about yourself? Like, who is Katie?
I am from Pawtucket, Rhode Island, which is a small like mill town. My family super blue collar, like pretty much everybody in my family worked at the same factory at one point in their lives. And growing up in the smallest state gave me advantages like being in the ocean state, right? So I'm by the water. So where there's water, there's stones. I have always been a person who walks the shoreline and picks things up and puts them in her pocket. I feel like there's been a bit of like destiny in all of this, right? A very full circle. I was an athlete growing up. I played baseball on an all boys team. Very cliche, I suppose. Eventually switched over to softball, but then found soccer. I did throw shot put for a couple of years in high school and just always knew that I loved to be a part of something bigger than myself. And so after college, where I went to Salve Regina in Newport, Rhode Island, played soccer there and rugby as well. I feel like there's a really strong rugby Highland Games crossover.
Yeah.
And it's the like, we're going to do something like really tough and impressive, but then I'll get beers after, you know? And yeah, it just kind of felt like I needed that. I needed something to fill that space of being a part of something and having goals and working towards something athletically, which is kind of where Highland Games came in.
Was there a specific moment in your childhood where you said, hey, like teaching or strength sport is kind of like where I'm going?
So I feel like there are two separate things, right? So when it comes to strength sports, I actually like I remember having this conversation with my mom. We used to go to my grandparents' house every Sunday, and we're sitting there in front of the TV watching football. And it like dawned on me where I was like, "Wait, Mom, are you saying because like all the professional people I'm seeing are men, and like I'm probably like 10 years old at this point." And I was like, "Are you saying that no matter how hard I try, like I won't ever get to be a professional at a sport?" I can't remember what she said, but it didn't make me feel better, right? She tried her best. Like I love my mom. She's the sweetest lady on earth. But she didn't really have an answer for me of like what how do I make you feel better? And I feel like it just kind of lit a fire under my butt of I don't know what it's going to be or how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make it whatever that ends up looking like, right? Which, takes me into Highland Games and all of that later on. And then in terms of teaching, my mom actually is a special education teaching assistant, and it's a career that she came to later on in life. And once she got involved with it, then two of her sisters did as well. And the three of them would talk about the challenges, but also talk about how rewarding it was. And so I can kind of thank my mom and my aunts for kind of giving me the nudge of like, hey, you get the summers off and you get to do something that's really meaningful, and just kind of like sprinkled that fish food in the pond for me. And as I got older and closer to college age, I kind of realized like, yeah, I think I could do this. I was always the person in like group projects who would kind of like slow things down, and be like, wait, who's doing what? How are we doing this? Or also kind of like in a friend group, like a peacemaker, right? Like I
Mhm.
will synthesize information and then like give it out. And was like, okay, well, if this is something I can just naturally do, then why not use this in service of others?
Yeah, and I mean, you can kind of see that it was there from an early age, that desire for inclusivity, for everyone to be involved, for everyone to have an opportunity, no matter what background, race, orientation. It's just you can tell that drive was there, when you asked your mom, why can't I? Why can't I ever play this sport professionally? And then, of course, because your mom was a teacher. And I really want to tie this back into how we as a Stone community can do this later in the podcast. But what would you say is the most misunderstood about inclusivity and in teaching in particular?
I think the most common misconception is that in order to be inclusive, that you have to take something away from other people, right?
Mhm.
Like there's this some sort of idea that there's like a finite amount of accommodating that can be done or a finite amount of care that can be given. And if I have to give extra to somebody else, that somebody else is missing out. And I will stand 10 toes down and say that that is so wrong. By including other people, and I say other very loosely because we're all other in some way. So by including all people, what we're doing is we're establishing a norm for people who feel a part of the majority. So when you bring people who are often left on the outside into the circle, you're not just doing what's right for that particular kid, you're actually growing the community.
And like, not to get all like Psych 101 here, but I'm going to, because it's so critical. And I'm seeing this in so many parts of the strength community right now, is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the base level is safety. And what makes safety is belonging. And what makes belonging, it's inclusivity and making you feel like you're accepted and wanted and listened to. And now, of course, there's like food and shelter, but
Right.
a basic belonging to society. And if you do not have that, you cannot gather the self-esteem and work on those other levels of individuation needed to be able to be in your position where you're giving back to the community through strength. And
Absolutely. Like
so,
it gave me goosebumps. You're
right?
saying that is, I was to say, I feel like it also could kind of be like summarized as like leading with a curiosity, right? Rather than a combativeness. And of course, like at certain levels or like certain core values where it's there's just a boundary here. Like can't flex on this, but it's like something I say in the classroom of like start with a question mark instead of an exclamation point, you know?
I love I love that. And I think as a manager, I could also walk away from this question reminded of that myself. And as a parent, we have a little one in our she was over in our stone lifting community. She's also part of the Highland Games community, and she has cerebral palsy. And what I wondered about, with your experience, how would you shape your approach for community and accessibility for either her or neurodiverse students?
So, in terms of shaping the approach, are you speaking about like how to access stone lifting, or are we
Well,
talking about?
yeah, like, and how would that inform a stone lifting space? Yes.
Yeah, so I think like first and foremost is the awareness, right? Like I think that there are so many like golden-hearted people out there who just haven't existed in a space where they've had to consider what it could be like to not have all of the faculties that they do have, right?
Yes.
Something to consider is that we are all just temporarily abled, right? We will all be in some form of disability at some point in our lives. That's just how it goes, right? And so I think raising awareness, and I think that part of it is like what we're doing today. And I'm so grateful that you put this podcast together, to get that message out there. And then something else I have found within the strength community is there's actually a lot of really good engineers, people who are, oh, I'm going to train just this one muscle in my forearm and I'm going to build this thing in my garage so that I can do it. Right. And
Yes.
so I find that sometimes within a community, some of the problems or issues or needs that need to be met, that the answers are already within the community. It just, those energies haven't been directed in that direction. Right. So for me, I'm wondering about like an kind of like an all call for, hey, garage engineers, what are some things you could come up with? Because assistive technology is something that I'm really interested in and passionate about. And with 3D printers now, there's so much stuff that can just be created. I think it just needs to be seen as this is something that's on the community to try to figure out and put together, right? Because everybody's needs are going to be individual,
Yes,
but there
absolutely.
are some things like I had been thinking about what sort of pulley system can we get together, right? So that somebody who's in a wheelchair could lift a weight from the ground, like lift a stone from the ground, right? And then, okay, then how could we have a ramp off of that so that it can get to lap and so you could bring it to chest?
I need you to listen to one of my other episodes, which is coming soon, which is Gary, Strongman Gary. He's become a welder. He was not a welder. He's now become a welder in COVID, and he has created a stone lifting table so he can do stone lifting. And they do the seated deadlift as well.
Mm,
So I can hardly wait to have you two talk to each other
I
eventually.
can't wait either.
And this is another part of why I'm loving this podcast, is because the more people I'm meeting, like you said, there's like these hidden gems in the community where you start linking people together, and it really does become inclusive. And it really becomes barrier free, because it's also cost barrier free. Stones are free.
They're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of my biggest mantras is, yes, of course, in the past, determining, what size of stone determined, how strong you were in society. But we can come at it with a different approach as well. We could have that approach, but also the size of the stone doesn't necessarily matter when you're talking about gaining that internal strength, when you're talking about that's the self-esteem, the ability to speak up for yourself, the ability to have boundaries, and you get to practice that in every strength setting. Have you found that is your experience through stone lifting and through strength, and maybe even through Highland Games, of that? Yeah, of course you're strong. I've seen your trap bar deadlift. It's enviable for sure. But it's that internal strength that I'm talking about as well. I think stones can be very important to not, maybe not measure it, but to help ground it.
Yeah, it's almost like considering the difference between strength and fortitude, right? Like
Ah,
there um and that is like that's mental fortitude, and then I almost feel like there's like a spiritual, like a heart level of that as well. And I know it sounds silly to say, but to me I did grow up in a religious family and ended up kind of stepping away from that. I don't necessarily align myself with how I grew up in my family anymore. But what I did find, and I'm glad you used the word reverence, I did find a certain level of peace through the practice of stone lifting, because to me, it bears some resemblance to what I once knew as like faith. And
Yes.
so where I could, like when I was a kid and I needed something or I was afraid or whatever, that my first instinct would be to pray, to offer something up. And I can do that alone. I don't need to be in a church to do that. Similarly, I can go into the woods and I can offer something up of myself in lifting a stone. However, I can also get that like collective effervescence, right, of being with a group and being in the woods, and whatever sort of scientific thing happens with your heartbeats and with your
Yes.
synchronicity, right? Where I'm
Yes.
taking this practice that I can do in private, but I'm choosing instead to share it with a group. And that magnifies this experience in some way that is, I don't know, it's inexplicable.
And there is science on that. So we are going down this rabbit hole too. And I know that you know what I'm talking about because I saw that you read the same post as I did about how when you work out in community,
Hmm.
how it is a nervous system regulator. And can you talk a little bit about what we're delving into here? Because like I think there's like maybe five different things that it when you work out, not work out, but when you do something in community, and in this
Yeah.
instance, we're doing stone lifting together, what are the main benefits to your nervous system, to that belonging?
So I can't speak scientifically because I don't I know I liked it, but I don't remember. But from personal experience,
Yeah.
there is uh it seems in the world that we live in right now, which is so fast paced and is so, for lack of better terminology, like egocentric, right? Where it's like, oh, like you need to be on your grind and you need to be doing this and you need to be doing this. And if you're not, then you're not doing enough, right?
Hmm.
No matter how strong you are, like a stone's only going to go up so fast, right? And if you don't take your time in setting up, you're probably not going to get the lift. So this is something that literally anchors you, right? In time and in space, which is powerful enough as an individual. But then all of a sudden you've got a circle of people around you, people who are in, at least in New England, where the folks that I'm lifting with, all different backgrounds, right? Like all different belief systems, all different ages, all different walks of life. And there is this like, I'm doing this for me, but I also want to do it for you guys. And it is that community piece that we keep talking about because it's so important. But it kind of does feel like a movie when everything goes into like super slow-mo. It's just like that like zoom out moment. You get the lift, you can like hear, it almost sounds like muffled cheering, and then you put the stone down and you've got people patting you on the back and everything speeds back up. And so it just like every possible feel good chemical that your brain can release, it is like fireworks.
Yes, absolutely. And it's like for me, like you, I've been getting shivers pretty much the whole time we've been talking, maybe a few tears at one point, but it is that sense of as like that's there is this spiritual element to it, that grounding element. And I'm not talking about like church. Like I'm talking about like a very spiritual, grounded soul kind of process. And when you collectively come together, all kind of resonating at that level, it does nothing but ground you. Whether you do it on your own or whether you and more so I find when you do it in a group. And you get that with the New England folks, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So, okay, I know you have a deep love of in our previous discussions you've told me that you have a deep love of historic sites. Like I myself as well love cemeteries and headstones. What draws you to those places?
So it is again a mix of things. So you can look at it from like an artist's perspective. I like to draw, I like to paint. Like these are other things that I do. So just looking at even like design choices, right? So there's beauty in the design itself. However, again, like it really has to do with connecting you to people because that design didn't just put itself there. There's a person who did that.
Hmm.
And I feel in my life that I very actively seek out situations that allow me to wonder. Like I want to be in awe. I want to feel wonder. And of course, it's easy to do that in places, like Iceland, where you have these giant waterfalls and you're like just struck by the beauty, which don't get me wrong, I love.
Hmm.
But it's also really beautiful to just be in your own neck of the woods and look closely at something that's in your own backyard that somebody else 200, 250 years ago was also looking at. And it's melancholy again. So like that sort of reverence of like these are stories of human people. And of course, where I live, I can go, I've gone into Boston and I can see headstone. I'm like, oh, there's Paul Revere's headstone, or Samuel Adams, all of these revered historical figures. And not to take anything away from them because their stories are important, but I like to linger at stones that are off the beaten path, right? Like the
Yes.
ones that you could tell don't get as many visitors. Um, and so it's that sense of wonder that draws me to those places. And like a desire, I don't know how any of this life thing works, Um, but I do have a desire, like I hope that in those moments where I'm choosing to stop and read and reflect and think that like whatever energy of that person existed in the world feels a little warmer because I took a moment to think about them.
Absolutely. Countless times and especially when I was down doing the comp at Fort 4, there's all those stone
Mm,
walls down there.
mm,
And I just like took my hand, like out, like just ran my hands along the stones
mhm,
because someone put them there. And there's like, if you haven't been to New Hampshire, and maybe there are in other places in the US as well, it's not very
mhm.
common here, but there's a lot of them.
Gosh, yeah. No,
Like,
that is yes. All throughout New England. And there's a lot of interesting conversations online too about was this something that colonial people were doing? Was this something that indigenous people were doing? And
mm,
it there's a lot of questions and not a whole lot of answers. But to echo your sentiment, yeah, a person, a group of people, right, took the time, whether it was to clear a field to do this, whether it was to create a serpent effigy, or whether it was to denote, certain property areas. But that was laborious to do.
yes,
And it's
yes.
still there.
They're not small.
No.
And so I think we just need to, before we get into the deep into the stones that you are lifting, a public service announcement of do not touch the stone walls,
Yep.
even though they are like very enticing.
Right.
It is a piece of history. So please look for your stones elsewhere.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. So where do you find your stones? And where would you say right now, if you want to reveal it, maybe you don't, would be one of your favorite spots in New England to lift or a hidden gem in nature?
So a really good spot to lift is Halibut Point. It's on the North Shore of Massachusetts, and it used to be a quarry. And
Okay.
it, so as you could imagine, right, there are stones abound. It also has a gorgeous ocean view. Like a lot of people do their proposals up at the view up there. Um, so that one, like, you can't beat it because you got a little hike. There's the quarry itself is actually all filled in with water now, but that's beautiful. And then you've got the ocean. Um, and like I set up a stone there that I never like weighed or anything, but it was just I'm gonna put this here and I'll post it and whoever's around like come check it out. They had this artist who came by in the 90s and had taken one of the large pieces of stone that they had and carved it into what kind of looks like, it looks like a druid. It's like a guy with a beard and the hood, and there's like a plinth, like it's very low, but there's a plinth right in front of him. And I'm like, a stone belongs here.
And so did you name it, or is it just the process for you?
It's just the process for
Yeah.
me. It's also that like I kind of call it like my like spirit antenna. Sometimes I just know like I need to go down this path, or I just know I have a feeling there's going to be something good over here. And so when I had initially seen that sculpture, I was like, there's going to be a perfect stone in the woods just back here. And my poor wife is freezing and waiting on the path. I'm just give me a minute. Hold on, hold on. And wouldn't you know, I had to break it out of the ice because New England is New England.
Mhm.
And rolled it over and was like, yeah, I'm doing this. Here, do you mind holding my phone? And she's the best. So she took the video for me. But like that was enough for me. I don't care particularly in terms of being the first at something, like when it comes to stone lifting. I'm not trying to like stake my claim. It doesn't feel like a risk board to me. And that's why I don't think I'll ever dip my toes into competitive stone lifting. I feel like I just want to keep this like very pure, raw sort of experience because I
Yes.
know that I'm an athlete and I know that I'll get in my head. And as it stands right now, I am no Hannah Lindsay, right? Like she's out here being full stirker, like crushing it, right? And that's incredible. And she's an amazing athlete. That's not what my stone journey looks like in my eyes.
No, I mean, definitely incredible stone lifter for sure. This isn't within my realm. And nor am I working towards it for being in my realm. I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm really happy to have my stone gym here,
Mm-hmm.
go over to Scotland a little bit, maybe lift some stones, maybe I just touch them, maybe I lift
Yep.
them with an apron.
Yeah.
Like,
Whatever happens, happens.
yeah, whatever happens, happens. And there's space for all of us. Like whether you choose the competitive sport path as well as like doing some of these amazing stones that like I'll probably only ever touch and see,
Mm-hmm.
to having a um to just lifting what feels is your calling to lift. And so I have two questions here, because one was about, you mentioned that you seem to have a wife similar to my husband. They're not into stone lifting, but they're along for the ride and are super supportive of it. Would you say that that's the case?
I would say that's the case. However, I did convince her on our last hike to pick up a rock.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I feel like I'm so proud. Like, she grabbed the stone and, she got it to shoulder and it was, it was like a good sized rock. Um, and as we're going, I had held her wedding ring for her and I was like, oh, I have your ring. I said, here, you can have it back. And she's like, but what if I find another rock? And I was like, yes.
Exactly. Now, the other question I wanted to ask you was, so you've been down this path of, adventure, finding things. Would you say that the coolest thing that you found is that plinth, or like, is there something else that you've stumbled across unexpectedly, like a piece of history?
Yeah. So I'm so glad you asked. I love this story. It was like a Sunday afternoon, probably 2018. And I feel like on the weekends is when I get that itch of I've got to go see something. Before the week starts, I've got to get that dose of wonder or awe. And I don't always know where that's going to bring me. And again, like shout out to my wife for being so chill where I'm like, I'm getting in the car. I don't know where I'm going, but I'll let you know that I'm safe. And she's like, you do enjoy. So this is, I'm in, where is it? Warren, Rhode Island at the time. So this was actually back when I was living in Rhode Island. And I'm driving along, I'm by the water, and there's a park on the other side of the road that I never stopped at, and just had that like, maybe we should check this out. And so I park and I see there's a path, and I could follow the path, but that would be too easy. So it's like, well, let me see what else is around here. And there was just that. I feel like there are just some people in your life that you're just drawn to. And then there are places that you just find. And so as I'm going around and up the side of this hill, there's this huge, beautiful stone at the top of the hill. And this isn't a cemetery, right? So it's not like there are other monuments sitting around. There's a beach and the ocean across the road, and then just this big grassy hill. And when I get to the top of the hill, I realize it's labeled, is actually the burial site of Chief Massasoit of the Wampanoag people, who's the one who like initially helped the pilgrims survive the winter. The original community builder of like, I am so sorry for you guys, I will help you out. And like the very limited peace that existed between the indigenous people and the European colonizers was at the hands of this man. And there, you know, there were some like offerings around the stone. It had like what he used to sign his name, like had an image of that like pictograph. And I just sat there and like looked out at the ocean and just had this like super zen moment, and like just and from every pore of my being, as much as I could, exuded gratitude, and I feel like I have to do something. I went down to the beach and like I grabbed a shell and like scooped up some seawater and was, you know, I'll put this at your feet for you so you can feel the water again. Like whatever practices we do that make us feel like we're doing something, right? Um, but it wasn't something I had gone looking for on that day. And I definitely had that feeling of wonderment and awe of just like, I can't believe I just tripped and fell into this, because my brain was like, you should go check that out.
That is absolutely incredible. I wonder, maybe because it seems like it would be such a trek to get a stone up there, but like
Mm.
somewhere in that area, having an honorary historical stone there of some sort, like or a
Yeah,
modern, you know what I mean?
and say no, you're touching upon what is like my pipe dream, which is, while we don't have physical historic stones in New England, we have so many people and stories. And it would be incredible to be able to set up stones at places that are connected through history and encourage people to go to these places and like QR code or whatever to like learn about where you are and lift this stone in honor of yourself and then in honor of all the people who came before us and whoever will come after us. That to me, it would be awesome.
Yeah, I would love that, and I would definitely make that a summer trek down there. For those Canadians who have not went down to the New England, New Hampshire area, like it is like there's so many stones. Like there's so many stones and
It's
they're beautiful.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, if you are looking, if you're like, I need to go to one place to have the most amount of stones to lift, I'm gonna send you to New Hampshire, the Pemigewasset River. It is stone heaven. Like they are all river tumbled stones. So they're smooth, they're round, and they come in every shape, size,
Yes.
and color. So anybody who's looking to come to New England area to lift stones, there are so many there that you could take home.
Okay, so this is where I'm thinking your story of Highland Games and stone lifting meet, because in Highland Games, as we both know, there was at times stones. Like
Hmm.
obviously we put stones for the throwing event, but
Hmm.
sometimes there are game stones where they're on chains and you have to walk with them, or you lift both of them, or there are various things you can do with them. Is that how you first, was it through the Highland Games that you first got introduced to stones, or nothing to do with Highland Games at all?
Um, it really had to do with the Stoneland documentary that
Oh,
came
okay.
out at the start of COVID. And so I had been doing Highland Games for a while at that point and hadn't really been exposed to stone lifting, whether like I kind of think of stone lifting in different categories of like there's historic, there's competitive, there's like the interpersonal, kind of none of the above. And so I think was it Rogue who put it out?
Yeah.
There was, yeah. There I am sitting in quarantine watching this and being like, oh my gosh, I could go do that tomorrow. Like I know
Mhm.
like 10 places I could drive to where I can socially distance and do this. So surprisingly, it was actually the pandemic that kind of brought stone lifting into the forefront for me.
And this is a commonality that I'm hearing in people's stories is that
Mm,
COVID, people needed to find something to do. This is part of that kind of resurgence, or part of
mm.
it anyway, is
Yeah.
that people were looking for things to do. They couldn't go to the gym anymore, and getting back out in nature was a solution for that.
With the pandemic, right? It stripped everything away to the core, right? So you had to be both creative and very basic. It's not like you could do 9 out of the 10 things you would usually do with your day. And so the things that were available, like I definitely was drawing and painting and writing more during the pandemic because it was like, all right, well, I mean, I was teaching too virtually, which is a whole nother bag of beans. I think it really caused people to turn inward and kind of evaluate, what do I need to feel whole when I don't have access to the things that I typically do?
Hmm.
And I think it's really powerful. And I think it's important that you're drawing that connection between people who are sharing that. Because for as much as we were talking before about how individual everybody is from one another, there are so many human commonalities that I
Hmm.
think get swept under the rug sometimes. And so it's really interesting to hear that a lot of people are sharing that.
Yeah. So have you done any of the stones in Highland Games, like Lundstrom or any of those stones?
I haven't. I competed in Alaska, and they have like a heavy stone put.
Yes. Yes, they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've done that one at like the Palmer, Alaska Games, and then there's an additional heavy stone put that they do. Oh my gosh, where's the halibut toss? In the other Highland Games that happens in Alaska. That's slipping my brain at the moment. So I got to do like a 2-for-1 because those events, those games happen on like bookended weekends. So I just stayed and did one
Oh.
comp and then enjoyed Alaska for a week and then did another comp and then went home.
Because I know that there's this other big set of handled stones there, and I think
Hmm.
Matt Hand did them. I don't know what games it's at, but they're heavy.
That's
They're
yes.
so heavy.
So heavy. That was at the Palmer, Alaska Games. And so yeah, I know he got a lift on it. I believe Hannah Lindsay also got a lift on it that day.
Yes, I believe so. Yes, she did. She
Hmm.
did for sure. So this segues so nicely into what I want to talk about next, and it's about community. So we obviously clearly have a Highland Games community. That community was super important for me. And,
Hmm.
and as is the stone lifting for my mental health. Like
Hmm.
when you suffer like depression or anxiety, you tend to want to pull inward, and you actually need to do the opposite. I mean, you need to ground yourself and get solid, but you need community. And I have felt ever since day one of chatting with Jarrett, or like New England,
Yeah.
Avastimati, who whatever you want to
Yeah.
call him, so accepted. Like he establishes that Maslow's hierarchy level, like you are safe, be who you need to be, and now let's go do the fun stuff. Right?
Yep.
Like
100%.
so how what makes New England stone lifting community like a true collective for you? Because that's what I would view. Like it's a community, but I
Hmm.
think it's a collective.
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head. A huge part of it is that it, being a part of this group or this community, this collective, it has nothing to do with like how many followers you have. It has nothing to do with what's the heaviest stone you can lift. Like at its core from day one and has stayed true on this course since then, it's all about just getting as many people who are interested out there.
Hmm.
Um, and helping people lift safely, helping people feel that collective effervescence that we were talking about. Uh, it can be tricky when, when a group takes off, right? When things start really getting, we've got t-shirts and sweatshirts and hats and whatever else, which is great. And I have them all because they're super comfy and really cool looking. However, the expectation of like the membership, and again, it's not like there's membership dues or cards or whatever, but the expectations of the people who are in the group is just be kind and be safe and have fun. And it's just that simple. And so with that in mind, Jarrett's done a wonderful job making sure when we're giving him his flowers, he made a documentary of the stone tour that we all had done and had it shown at like a local brewery, which was awesome. Like we all got together and we're all clapping him on the back of, you did amazing. He's always the first one to say, it's nothing without you all. Yes, thank you. I accept, but like honestly, like this is a group. So yeah, I think it's that level of understanding the expectation is just be good, have fun, be safe.
So let's just kind of like nail it on the head just a little bit more for folks. What
Yeah.
does inclusivity look like in stone lifting then? Like we've kind of talked about it already, but let's just hit it home one more time.
Sure. I think it is summarized best in the phrase, it's like stone lifting is for everyone. And like
Yes.
in all caps, underline bold, like everyone. There isn't anybody who wants to lift a stone who should be turned away from lifting a stone. Like full stop. It can be tricky sometimes in the world of strength and strength sports where some people's idea of what strength is based solely on numbers and on performance. The reason I'm mentioning that is because we do a lot of like community outreach, like try it events. And so these are people who are brand new to doing it. And as you would expect, anytime when you're working with a large group of people, that there might be one or two people who want to just ignore your directions and just like grip it and rip it, right? Which is why insurance is important. But
So true.
right?
So true. Yeah.
But there's also this like really healthy masculinity in the group where like if there are people who are stepping up and who are not abiding by the rules, right? Like they're getting checked in like a very respectful and kind way, but they're getting checked of like, no, like we're not picking this up unless we can do it safely.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about, again, the hierarchy of needs, I feel so safe to just be myself when I'm with this group of people.
And would you say like that was what was the moment that you said, oh yeah, this is my community? Like, do you remember when it was?
Yeah. So one that really comes to mind is when we were doing that stone tour. So it was a multiple states, multiple day event that, was organized by New England Stonelifting. And we were at a spot in Connecticut. And there was a stone that hadn't been weighed, but that had been found. We're like, oh, we should go try to lift it. And it was a wide variety of strength levels present, right? Like there are some guys who are lifting these huge stones, and there's me who's just like doing my best. And because we didn't know how heavy it was, like everybody tried it. And every single person who tried it, and there were other women who were there, other men who would be like lightweight athletes, right? In Highland Games, right? Everybody tried it and everybody got wind under it. And then we weighed it and it was over like a little over 200 pounds. But it was like, that is huge for me. That's not something that I'm typically doing every day. But like that moment where we weighed it and they said what the weight was, everyone had that, oh my gosh, like, way to go. Every single person got a lift on it. That to me, I'm hooked.
That's what it's about. That's what it's about. Like, I mean, there's been so many times where I've been in that same position where I'm out with like Amanda, who I left with, or even Sarah, like when I was out in Alberta, or with Jamie, and I don't know how heavy these stones are.
Hmm.
And then I go and lift it, and it's like way beyond like what I even thought was possible.
Yep.
And so that's kind of cool. But it's again goes back to what we were saying about there's something that happens when you lift in community. Like I think there might be uh add 50 pounds to your lift community factors.
Yeah.
Like that, right?
It's
Like
like some Dungeons and Dragons, like I roll a 20 every
yes.
time on strength. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. I exactly think that's what it is. So yeah, that is super cool. And so would you say not to still tell stories out of school, but is there something that you wouldn't expect, like that people wouldn't expect behind the culture of NESL? Or is it just because it's so such a collective, so transparent, like what you see is what you get?
Yeah, I think that that is what would be unexpected because
Hmm.
I think that just by nature of humans humaning, right? That sometimes when there are groups that there it can be messy
Hmm.
sometimes, right? Like just it's just kind of how it goes. This really is like what you see is what you get. It's not performative, it's not for likes, it's not
Yeah.
for anything other than the people who are interested in it, and who want to be a part of it. We've had like grandmas lifting stones. We've had like little 4 or 5 year old kids lifting stones. And it is for everyone.
And so this now we're really getting into the stuff that I really want to chat with you about. There's two experiences that you had, and I think if I get this right, one was at the therapeutic school, one was at a Scandinavian center.
Yep, that's
And
correct.
you had, and I don't know which one I want you to go with first, but let's talk about the day you were at the therapeutic school. Tell me how the students responded physically, emotionally, and like do you have a special story about that day?
Yeah, I mean, that a whole day is really special to me. I feel like it highlighted like this is what I want to do with this knowledge that I have, right? But particularly, right? So we're meeting the kids. We've got all the stones set up. Jarrett and Steve went stone shopping. We were in New Hampshire. So it was, oh, they're just gonna go across the street and get some, like they're here. And these are teenage kiddos who are, as teenagers do, kind of sauntering out to where we are. Jarrett had provided the teachers with like some of the video clips and stuff. And so they were cute. They were like, oh, like you guys are famous. We saw you online, like they were gassing us up. And I was like, oh, okay. There's like a wide range, right? So there was a couple of kids who were sitting more in the back. We're outside, obviously. Some kids who are right up front. They're like kind of rib jabbing each other as we go. They're just being teenagers, right?
Hmm.
And we kind of give our spiel. We do our safety demo, and we have the stones set up from lightest to heaviest, um, and ask for a volunteer to come up and try. And so, first kid comes up to try, and she's doing great. She's following all the steps. I don't care that it's 20 pounds. We're putting it on your lap. We're going to go through all of the steps and blah, blah, blah. And then it was just kind of like this domino effect, right? So it was like, well, one kid went through and like she did great and got her stickers because Jarrett's so good about having like handout stuff,
Hmm.
and got her stickers and sat down. And then so this waterfall of kids, oh, like I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. And um it was so awesome because for as much as they were kind of like rib jabbing each other here and there when they first came out, like they were just cheering each other on. A couple of stones were pretty heavy. And so this is all happening and it's awesome. And I noticed that there's one kiddo who like hasn't raised her hand to participate. And so while somebody else is up there lifting, I just kind of went over and asked, "So, do you want to try this but like over there so that people don't have to watch us?" And
Yeah.
like she gave me like a quick like mm-hmm. And I was like, "All right, find a spot that's comfortable. Like I'll bring a rock over. I'll be right there." And it was just, again, I keep feeling like I'm using the same words. It was amazing. It was awesome. It was cool. Like because it is, and it
Hmm.
was. And looping it back to that inclusivity piece, right? This is a therapeutic school. So kiddos who have been through some stuff. And for this particular young woman, right, she wanted to do it, but just needed the entry point, right? And
Yes.
so letting her know that like you're like, we see you, you know, and like I'm not going to make a big deal about it. You don't have to come up here, but like this is for you too. And
We
so
see you.
yeah.
That is so that goes so far. Like
Mhm.
that is like such a beautiful story. And um women can do it for other women. As
Mhm.
you say, the healthy masculine in our lives definitely do us. Like
Mhm.
Jamie was the one that said, like, go lift a stone.
Mm.
Jamie was the one. Like I started Atlas stones, but I never even thought about lifting natural stones. And he's like, no, give it a go. Like this is go, just find one, do it.
Yeah.
And like he kind of, and not to get too deep into this stuff, but like the a lot of times women seek permission due to our conditioning, and depending on what age you're in, and I'm 50, so um we grew up with some conditioning, and like there were limits, and there are some things you do, some things you, but when Jamie gave me the permission, like permission to go and lift the stone, I felt like he saw me. And you did that for that girl, that young woman. And
Sometimes it's just a nudge, you know?
yeah, like that's phenomenal. And so what would you say then would be your biggest takeaway from that particular experience? Because then we'll talk about the one experience you had at the Scandinavian school.
I think the biggest takeaway from that experience was like the desire to do it again
Hmm.
and to do it more. We also, Jarrett very graciously, with the teacher's permission, left the Atlas stone that we had brought, which of course the teachers were getting in on too, trying to lift it, right? Which was great, right? So
Yes.
like everybody wins. And so I feel like, yes, we left them with like a physical thing, but that again, that idea of like, I hope this is like one of your like happiness anchors, like one of those
Hmm.
moments that you can think back to that can kind of bring you back when you start drifting too far away from your happy place.
Yeah, like your spirit anchor. So you had that experience. Would you say that a key to the success of that was, if people were to replicate something like that, making it obviously non-competitive, but having kind of some type of takeaway, like as you said, the stickers. Like, what do you think are the key elements to success if we wanted to replicate that in our own communities?
So I think first and foremost, like anytime when you're getting to together with a collective to do something, like the goals need to be very clear before the event starts, right? So
Right.
we had a pre-meeting, just us, and then we had a pre-meeting with us and one of the teachers at the school. It all starts by like asking questions to get yourself aligned, because you also want to be mindful of, you know, schools, all schools do things differently. And so if there's any sort of common language in terms of student expectations or common language around, you know, some people are really serious about cueing the midpoint of an activity, right?
Hmm.
So that way everybody's grounded. You want to try to do whatever you're doing within whatever frameworks already exist so that it's the most accessible for the people who are trying to engage with it. Like the pre-work, right? That's huge. Secondly is mutual respect, and not just between the educators, like the people who are running it, but for all of the people you're interacting with as well. We do a really good job. Jarrett really hammers down, like, I don't ever want things to be separated. Like, all right, all the boys go over here. It is an expectation that we all will be seen as equals. And then I think lastly is the access points, honestly. So we had stones that were very small, and we had stones all the way up to stones that were heavier. And so then like this was successful because that first kiddo who went, got to like the fourth stone in the line, a few other kids went and she was, I want to go back in. I want to try that fifth one. Right.
Yeah.
So you need to have a little something to like keep people coming back. I think that the handouts are great. That never hurts. Everybody loves a good sticker and a QR code. But if you really, really want to replicate this in a way that's going to make people come back for more, then it's like you need to establish a way that they can be successful and also establish what is your next step? What does that look like? Because then that gives them something clear that they're shooting for the next time.
And I think having the Atlas stone there was kind of it can also provide that goal of something to kind of work towards, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Very cool. And so then you also did a kind of try it session, I believe you called it, at Scandinavian Center, and you worked with a really cute kiddo there. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so um, that was a great day. It was a really well attended festival that they were having there, Scandinavian festival, and there were a few of us instructors, and Jarrett had kind of tapped me on the shoulder to say, "Hey, we've got a kiddo coming up who's got some needs, so I'll have you, take the lead on that." I was like,
Mhm.
"I'm ready." And this guy, he must have been, I don't know, maybe 7. And his smile already, like step one, he just like steps up to the plate, like ear to ear grin, spiky hair and like bright eyes, ready to go. And uh, I was all right, here we go. So I just kind of walked through. I was like, all right, put your feet together, touch your head, touch your shoulders, touch your hips, touch the stone, touch your nose, look at me. And so he's like right with me, like, up, 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 up. I'm like, all right, we're going to bend down together. We're going to pick it up. And so we bend down together and pick it up. And his family is like cheering and cheering. And I'm like, all right, are you ready to try it on your own? And he's like, yeah. So we do the whole thing. I'm like, touch your head, touch your shoulders, touch your knees, touch your toes. Ready, touch the stone. And he picks it up. And he came up to, because we had it like over a little bar.
Mhm.
He stepped up with an ear to ear grin, and I didn't know it could get any bigger. But once he got that second stone up on his own, he was looking around. Are you seeing this? And his mom, they had another little one too. So she's wrangling kids, but she's got like the camera recording him, and he got so many high fives. I swear, like he stepped up, he was this tall, and when he left, he was this tall, because his chest, he was like, I am the man. I'm like, yeah, you are, dude. Um, yeah, it was awesome.
And really, these moments that you're speaking about truly capture what stone lifting is all about.
Right. Um,
Like,
I like to think too, in some way, when I think of that like 10-year-old version of myself who was, are you saying that I'll never be good enough at something to be like a professional or,
mhm.
whatever that feeling is or was? I sometimes like to envision that 10-year-old girl standing there with me and being like, you're going to be okay, kid. Because for some of these youngsters who are stepping up, and, even for the kids that I teach, if I had a teacher who looked like me or who like talked about lifting stones or who like, I idolized Xena just because I was like, this is
Mhm.
a strong, badass
Yeah.
woman. This is awesome, right? But I'm like, I'm just by existing, I'm doing something that's helpful. And then by again using that strength in service to other people, I am fist bumping that 10-year-old Katie and being like,
Mhm.
we're gonna be okay.
Ah, and so I guess how did lifting, how did Highland Games, stones, all of that then change your own relationship with your body, your confidence, your esteem?
Yeah. I would like to be I would like to be able to say, oh, I started lifting and then
Yeah.
everything was better.
Everything just, yeah.
It was so crazy.
It's like magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question. No. Um honestly, it has certainly helped.
Mhm.
And a lot of the work that you have to do as a woman, in my experience, a lot of the work that you have to do is the mental lifting. So yes, getting strong has definitely helped with my self-esteem. It has helped with me feeling like safer in the world, whatever
Hmm.
that means. But it also is like partnered with therapy. There's a lot of mental lifting that goes along with it to convince yourself that you're good enough. Whatever it is that you are on whatever day it is good enough. That's not easy.
It
It
isn't.
doesn't, you know, y- sometimes like you mentioned that trap bar deadlift, right? Like I was riding
Hmm.
a high, right? That
Yeah.
was a hell of a lift. Now I'm like, doot, doot, I felt like that kid, right? I'm like, whoop, whoop, whoop. But then, I get in the car and I drive away and it's like, well, I should have done more,
Hmm.
right? And so what it, what it has done for me is at the surface level, I'm at least able to track progress. So it has given me data to battle intrusive thoughts with.
Hmm.
So when I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, oh, like I've got these strong shoulders and a soft belly or whatever, you're like, ugh. I'm like, hold on. Yeah, these are feelings and they're valid and I can feel them. But if
Yes.
I want like a sword to fight them away with, I'd be like, girl, look at your training. You're crushing it. Over the last, I don't even know how many years it's been. I guess like 7 years that I've been training fairly seriously. And if I look at those numbers from year one until now, I'm like, I'm doing just fine. It isn't a silver bullet, but it is a weapon
Yeah.
against that kind of thinking.
Hmm. It doesn't have to be stone lifting. It doesn't have to be weightlifting or Highland Games. It can be anything, but it's just getting those small basics down allows you to get the bounce back faster.
Yeah. No, that resonates with me as well.
Hmm.
I was thinking as you were talking of like, oh, tools in a toolkit, right? It's just
Hmm.
it is another option. And when we're feeling those down and out sort of ways, it can sneak up on you. Or
Totally
sometimes
sneaks up.
it's or sometimes it's even the self-sabotage where you're like, I know I shouldn't, but I'm doing it. I'm looking, I'm scrolling, I'm whatever it
Yes.
is, engaging, right? um,
Yeah.
it feels really good to have an action item, right? Like
Hmm.
something that you have agency over of like,
Hmm.
I can take the wheel for a minute.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I absolutely resonate with tools in the toolkit, and I think, as I said, like it has been a really important. If I didn't have stone lifting, if I didn't have weightlifting, I think it would be harder to get back into some type of routine and get things back in order. We're about to wrap this up, but there's a few more questions that I have. One is, if you could, and I think you've kind of explained it in a multiple variations, but if you had like one or two words to explain what you want people to feel when they lift that first stone with you, what would it be?
um Honestly, it's very simple to me, which is just love. It's for yourself, it's for others, and like for your environment. That feeling, that warmth, that like good juju, right? That's something that can sometimes get kickstarted by the lift that then you carry with you for the rest of that day. Or
Hmm.
when you watch it back, you're like for the rest of that week or whatever it is, right? So as we were kind of talking about tools, ways that you can kind of jumpstart some of that mental health stuff, I would really just hope for that, like that just love kind of vibe.
I'm totally on board for that. And I think each guest is going to have their own t-shirt slogan, because you have now created another t-shirt slogan that I need to create. Segueing into t-shirts, NESL has a lot of t-shirts that are great. So make sure you hit them up, check them out on Instagram. I don't know if they're running any right now, but what would you hope then, besides awesome t-shirts, would the future of New England stone lifting look like for you? We've hinted on that earlier with some of the historic elements that you were talking about.
Yeah. Kind of two pathways here that are running parallel with each other in terms of the future. One of them is around history, like what we talked about. I was in Gloucester, Massachusetts, a couple weekends ago in a place called Dogtown, which was a city or a town of primarily like outcast type people, widowed women, people who were born female but choose to dress male, who
Mhm.
were kind of outcast from society, who lived in this place. And through watching a YouTube video about it later, somebody had mentioned a story about one of these people who was born female, who chose to dress as male, and who lifted a stone for their neighbor who was born male, who chose to dress female, and was like, "Where do you want me to put this?" And so, like, I am trying so hard to track down the person who put that video together, because I'm
You
like,
have
"Can
to.
we?" Right? Jared, and I told Jared about it. I'm like, "This is so cool," because I'm like, I want to tell the stories of people
Yes,
through stone.
this is what okay, so, like, we should be co-hosts because this is what I like, it's storytelling to me. Like, sure, it's in a podcast format, but it's really about storytelling
Hmm.
because, yes, we're all lifting stones, but there's so much more under it. Yeah. Just as we wrap up here, besides your, NESL, do they have a website? Or is
Um,
it just
So there's the New England Stonelifting Instagram, which is where you'll find mostly everything. There's also a link up at the top of that page to the website called apileofdirt.com. That's where you can find t-shirts, stickers. Jared's been putting together some like informational zines too. So just cool little printout type things in terms of information around like the next stone tour. We don't have anything planned just yet, but I would keep your eyes on the Instagram page for that kind of stuff. Um,
amazing?
and then I just wanted to also share in terms of vision for New England Stonelifting, more
Mhm.
schools, going to more schools, doing more stuff to get kids interested in stonelifting because, like you had said before, it's financially accessible. It is
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And so that is another huge component in my mind of where I would love to see this go.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And I really can see that I've been doing a lot of reflecting in the last couple weeks about things and thinking about like what does the future of stone lifting look for my vision of
Hmm.
where I want it to go. Because when I started out, I went to Highland Games and the night before they did a stone lifting competition and it was only for men. And I was like, why is that? And it was just before COVID that happened. And I said, well,
Okay.
I'm going to bring stone lifting to women in Canada so that they can give a go at these things. And then COVID
Awesome.
happened. But then eventually we did. So, but then that was my first iteration of my stone self.
Hmm.
I've kind of evolved a bit from then. So I'm just trying to figure out what my next kind of thing is. But I think for sure stone lifting in schools would be an awesome thing to do. And like for me, I'd like to do
Yeah.
high school kids, just because
Yeah.
I've had two young girls go through, well, young women now go through, and it can be challenging. Ooh, on that note, we have went like all over the place. I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today to share all of these like goodies that you've given us and really get us back to kind of my philosophy here of yeah, it's bring everyone to the table. We all have a story to tell. And I hope that all of you have enjoyed Katie's story. And thank you so much, Katie. It's been an amazing, amazing hour and a half with you.
Well, thank you, first of all, for inviting me to be a part of it. And that's what it's all about, is sharing stories and connecting with people. And I love the name Stone Table because there's a seat for everybody. So
There is
thank
a
you for
seat.
what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Katie. Have a great night.
You too. Bye
Okay,
bye.
take care. Bye.